He was just a farm boy, until the Relic whispered, heir of the forbidden line. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. In the golden wheat fields of New Eden Colony, Daniel Foster worked the land his family had cultivated for 3 generations, unaware that the dirt beneath his calloused hands contained secrets older than human memory. The amber waves of grain swayed gently under the twin suns of Epsilon Eridani. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, leaning on his harvester as he gazed across the rolling fields that stretched to the distant mountains. His family's farm was modest compared to the massive agricultural complexes that dominated most of New Eden, but it was theirs, one of the few independent holdings left on the frontier world. "Daniel, dinner," his mother's voice carried across the field, amplified by the comm unit at their homestead. He straightened, stretching his back. At 22, Daniel was tall and wiry, sun-bronzed skin over lean muscle built from years of physical labor. His dark hair was perpetually tousled, and his green eyes, a rare trait among the colonists, stood out against his tanned face. The walk back to the homestead gave him time to reflect on the life he'd inherited. 4 generations ago, when Earth had become overcrowded and resource-depleted, humanity had reached for the stars. New Eden was among the first colony worlds, terraformed and settled by those seeking a simpler existence. The Foster family had been among those pioneers, choosing to work the land rather than embrace the technological marvels that dominated core world society. As he approached the modest prefab structure his great-grandfather had established, Daniel noticed an unfamiliar vehicle parked nearby, a sleek government transport with the Unified Colonial Authority insignia emblazoned on its side. His pace quickened. The UCA rarely ventured to the outlying farms unless there was trouble. Inside, his mother, Sarah, was setting the table while his father, James, spoke in hushed tones with a tall woman in a crisp UCA uniform. The conversation halted abruptly when Daniel entered. "Ah, there he is," his father said, a strained smile on his weathered face. "Daniel, this is Administrator Chun from the Colonial Archaeological Division." The woman turned, her sharp eyes assessing him with unsettling intensity. "Daniel Foster, I've been looking forward to meeting you." Something in her tone sent a chill down his spine. "Ma'am," he nodded politely. "What brings the CAD to our farm?" His mother interjected nervously. The administrator was just explaining that they need to conduct a survey of the Eastern Ridge. Apparently, there might be some pre-colonial artifacts. Pre-colonial? Daniel frowned. "You mean predecessor artifacts?" The predecessors, an enigmatic alien civilization that had vanished thousands of years before humanity's arrival, had left scattered remnants throughout the galaxy. Their advanced technology, what little had been recovered, had accelerated human development by centuries. Finding predecessor tech was both extraordinarily valuable and strictly controlled by the UCA. Administrator Chin smiled thinly. "Very good, Mr. Foster. Yes, we have reason to believe there may be a small predecessor outpost buried in the Eastern Ridge, technically within your family's land grant." Daniel glanced at his parents, noting their tense postures. "I didn't realize we had to give permission for archaeological surveys. I thought all predecessor findings automatically fell under UCA jurisdiction." "They do," Chin agreed smoothly. "But access to private land still requires owner cooperation. Your parents have graciously agreed to allow our team to begin preliminary surveys tomorrow." James Foster cleared his throat. "We were just discussing compensation for any disruption to our operations." "Of course," Chin nodded. "The UCA is prepared to offer fair remuneration. But first, I was hoping to speak with your son privately." Daniel's parents exchanged a look he couldn't interpret. His father nodded slowly. "You can use the study." Minutes later, Daniel found himself seated across from Administrator Chun in his father's small office. Little more than a desk and some storage units crowded into a spare room. "I'll be direct, Mr. Foster," Chin began, her voice lower and more serious than before. "Our survey team isn't here by random chance. We've been tracking energy signatures consistent with active predecessor technology for months. Those signatures led us here, specifically to your family's land. Daniel frowned. Active? I thought all predecessor tech was dormant until activated by humans. Most is, she agreed. Which is why this particular signature is of special interest. It's been fluctuating in a pattern consistent with attempts at communication. Communication with whom? Chen leaned forward. That's what we intend to find out. But there's something else you should know. The signal intensity increased dramatically 3 weeks ago. Daniel quickly calculated. That's when I started plowing the eastern fields for the new season. Precisely. Chen studied him with unnerving focus. Mr. Foster, are you aware of anything unusual in your family history? Any stories passed down through generations? Any unusual abilities? He shifted uncomfortably. No. We're farmers. Have been since Earth. Nothing special about us. She smiled in a way that suggested she believed otherwise. The predecessors left many mysteries behind, Mr. Foster. One of the most persistent theories is that they didn't simply disappear, they evolved beyond physical form. Some researchers believe they might have left behind genetic markers in compatible species. Compatible species, Daniel repeated. You mean humans? Some humans, Chen corrected. Very specific genetic lineages. There are classified UCA records of individuals who can interact with predecessor technology in ways others cannot. A chill ran through him. And you think I'm one of these people? I think it's a possibility worth exploring. She removed a small device from her pocket. A smooth metallic cylinder with faint blue illumination pulsing along its length. This is a basic predecessor artifact. Completely safe, I assure you. Would you hold it for me? Daniel hesitated, then slowly extended his hand. The moment his fingers closed around the cylinder, the blue illumination flared brilliantly, and a sensation like static electricity raced up his arm. He nearly dropped it in surprise. Chen's expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed excitement. Interesting. Most people feel nothing. What does this mean? Daniel asked, his voice unnaturally tight as he returned the cylinder. It means, Mr. Foster, that you may be special after all. She pocketed the device and stood. Our team will arrive at dawn. I suggest you join us for the survey. After Chen departed, Daniel found his parents waiting anxiously in the kitchen. The table was set for dinner, but no one had touched the food. What did she want? His mother asked, her voice trembling slightly. Daniel studied their faces, his father's grim expression, his mother's poorly concealed anxiety. She thinks I can interact with predecessor technology. She tested me with some kind of artifact. He paused, observing their reaction. You don't seem surprised. His father sighed heavily, shoulders slumping. Sit down, son. There are things we should have told you long ago. The family settled at the table, dinner forgotten. James Foster looked older than his 50 years as he began to speak. Your mother's family line, the Shepherds, has a history with the predecessors. Your grandfather, Thomas Shepard, was a xenoarchaeologist before the Restriction Acts. He made discoveries that the UCA suppressed. Daniel looked to his mother, who nodded sadly. My father found evidence that certain human bloodlines had been deliberately altered by the predecessors before they vanished. He called these bloodlines the chosen or the heirs, humans with the capacity to activate and control predecessor technology at an intuitive level. The UCA determined this knowledge was too dangerous, James continued. The potential for advanced weapons falling into the hands of individuals beyond government control was deemed an unacceptable risk. Sarah reached for Daniel's hand. When the Restriction Acts passed, all predecessor research was nationalized. Your grandfather refused to surrender his findings. There was an incident. He was labeled a terrorist. We had to flee to the outer colonies and change our names. Daniel struggled to process this revelation. So my grandfather was a fugitive? And you've been hiding all this time? We hoped they'd never find us, his father said quietly. That you'd never have to carry this burden. But why would they come looking now? After all this time? His mother's eyes filled with tears. Because of what you are, Daniel. You're an heir, probably the strongest one in generations. We tried to keep you away from anything connected to the predecessors, but apparently, something on this land has been calling to you anyway. Daniel pushed back from the table, his mind reeling. This is insane. I'm a farmer, not some chosen one with alien DNA. Blood will tell, his father said grimly. Chen is not here for a simple archaeological survey. Once they confirm what you are, they'll take you away for special training. You'll become UCA property, a tool for accessing predecessor weapons and technology. Then I won't go with them, Daniel said firmly. I'll refuse. His parents exchanged another weighted look. There's another option, his mother said softly. Your grandfather left something for you, something we've kept hidden. She rose and moved to a seemingly ordinary section of kitchen wall. After pressing a specific sequence on the environmental control panel, a small compartment slid open, revealing a cloth-wrapped bundle. With reverent care, she placed it on the table and unwrapped the layers of protective fabric. The object inside was unlike anything Daniel had seen before, a triangular device made of an iridescent material that seemed to shift between solid metal and translucent crystal. Symbols unlike any human language were etched into its surface, glowing faintly with inner light. This is the keystone, his mother explained. Your grandfather recovered it from a predecessor vault on Mars before the Restriction Acts. It's some kind of navigation device. It can lead an heir to something the predecessors called the Sanctum. According to your grandfather's notes, his father added, the Sanctum contains the truth about the predecessors' disappearance and their plans for humanity. He believed it also housed technology that could free the heirs from UCA control. Daniel stared at the artifact, hesitant to touch it. Why didn't grandfather use it himself? The keystone responds only to specific genetic markers, his mother explained. My father had some ability to activate predecessor technology, but not enough for the keystone. He believed his descendant would be stronger, that the bloodline would concentrate the traits with each generation. This is too much, Daniel muttered, rising from his chair. Yesterday I was worried about crop yields, and today you're telling me I'm some kind of genetic experiment meant to unlock alien secrets. We're sorry, son, his father said, genuine regret in his eyes. We wanted to protect you from this legacy. What happens now? Daniel asked, still trying to wrap his mind around these revelations. You have a choice to make, his mother said. You can go with Chen tomorrow, become what the UCA wants you to be. Or you can take the keystone and find the Sanctum. Either way, his father added grimly, you'll need to leave tonight. Once Chen confirms what you are, they won't let you go. Daniel looked between his parents and the alien artifact on their kitchen table. If I leave, what happens to you? We'll be fine, his mother assured him, though her voice lacked conviction. We can claim ignorance. Say you stole the farm vehicle and ran away when you learned about the survey. But they won't believe you, Daniel said, the reality of the situation sinking in. His father's expression hardened. What matters is giving you a head start. There are underground networks, people who help those with predecessor connections escape UCA control. We have some contacts. For a long moment, Daniel said nothing, his mind racing through implications and possibilities. Finally, he reached for the keystone. The moment his fingers touched its surface, the symbols flared with brilliant light, and a sensation like a current flowed into him. Unlike the test cylinder Chun had given him, this wasn't a simple static shock. It was as if the device had synchronized with his heartbeat. More startling, he could somehow understand the symbols now, not through conventional reading, but through an intuitive knowing that bypassed normal cognition. It's pointing somewhere, he whispered, surprised at his own certainty. North, beyond the mountains. His parents stared at him with a mixture of awe and sadness. Then that's where you need to go, his father said quietly. The next hour passed in a blur of hurried preparations. Daniel packed essential supplies while his mother prepared food for his journey. His father readied their old utility vehicle, slower than modern transports but sturdy and, critically, lacking the tracking systems built into newer models. As midnight approached, Daniel embraced his parents at the edge of their property. The keystone was securely wrapped and hidden in his pack, along with supplies, emergency credits, and a small disruptor pistol his father had kept hidden for years. There's a settlement in the northern foothills, New Prospect, his father explained. Ask for Alara Voss at the repair shop. Tell her Sarah sent you. She can help you get off-world if necessary. His mother held him tightly. The keystone will guide you, but be careful who you trust. The UCA has eyes everywhere. I still don't understand everything, Daniel admitted. But I'll find answers. Trust your instincts, his mother said. The predecessor connection manifests differently in each heir, but it always enhances natural abilities. Your grandfather could sense patterns no one else could see. You might develop different gifts. With a final embrace, Daniel climbed into the utility vehicle. As he drove away from the only home he'd ever known, he glanced in the rearview mirror to see his parents standing together under the starlit sky, two solitary figures growing smaller with distance. The eastern horizon was just beginning to lighten when Daniel reached the foothills. He'd driven through the night, following both established roads and cross-country routes where necessary. The keystone, which he'd placed on the passenger seat, pulsed with increasing brightness as he progressed northward. He was navigating a narrow mountain pass when the first rays of the twin suns crested the horizon. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. The light struck the keystone, and the device projected a holographic map into the air above the dashboard. Daniel swerved in surprise, nearly sending the vehicle off the road. He pulled over, staring in wonder at the detailed, three-dimensional projection. It showed the surrounding terrain with remarkable accuracy, but also revealed features that weren't visible to the naked eye, including what appeared to be an extensive tunnel system beneath the mountains ahead. A pulsing point of light indicated his destination, a location deep within the northern range, in a valley that Daniel knew was largely unexplored due to its inaccessibility. As he studied the map, a new sensation washed over him, a presence at the edges of his consciousness, like a whisper just below the threshold of hearing. Instinctively, he touched the keystone again, and the whisper crystallized into words. Heir of the Forbidden Line. The sanctum awaits. The voice wasn't audible in the conventional sense. It resonated directly in his mind. Ancient and powerful, yet somehow familiar, as if part of him had always known it would come. Who are you? Daniel asked aloud, feeling foolish but compelled to respond. We are the Guardians, the presence replied. The keystone has awakened. The protocol is initiated. What protocol? What am I supposed to do? Proceed to the sanctum. All will be revealed to the heir. Before Daniel could ask more questions, the presence faded, leaving him alone with the humming keystone and its projected map. With a deep breath, he restarted the vehicle and continued his journey, following the route indicated by the holographic guide. The mountain paths grew increasingly treacherous, forcing him to abandon the vehicle when the terrain became impassable. On foot, with the keystone secured in his pack, Daniel hiked through dense forest and across rocky plateaus. By midday, he reached a sheer cliff face with no apparent path forward. According to the keystone's map, however, his destination lay directly beyond this obstacle. Frustrated and exhausted, he sat on a boulder to rest, removing the keystone from his pack. Now what? He muttered. As if in response, the device pulsed, and new symbols appeared on its surface. Somehow, Daniel understood their meaning. He needed to place the keystone against the cliff face. Skeptical but lacking alternatives, he approached the seemingly solid rock wall and pressed the artifact against it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low rumble, a section of the cliff began to reconfigure, not sliding aside like a door, but actually changing its molecular structure, transforming from solid stone to a permeable membrane that rippled like water. Daniel stared in astonishment. He'd heard stories of predecessor matter phase technology, but seeing it in action defied belief. Cautiously, he extended his hand toward the shimmer. His fingers passed through with only a slight resistance, like pushing through heavy syrup. Taking a deep breath, he clutched the keystone tightly and stepped forward into the membrane. There was a moment of disorientation as the material flowed around him, and then he was through, standing in a dimly lit tunnel that sloped gently downward. The walls of the passage emitted a soft blue bioluminescence that brightened as he advanced, as if responding to his presence. The air was surprisingly fresh, with a slight metallic tang that tickled his nose. Following the tunnel's descent, Daniel eventually emerged into a vast underground cavern. The ceiling soared hundreds of meters overhead, studded with crystalline formations that glowed with inner light. The chamber was dominated by concentric platforms rising from a central point, creating a terraced amphitheater of alien design. And there, at the center of the lowest level, stood a structure unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. A pyramidal construction of the same shifting metal crystal material as the keystone, but on a massive scale. Symbols identical to those on the keystone covered its surface, pulsing with living light. "The sanctum," he whispered, knowing instinctively that he had reached his destination. As he descended toward the structure, movement caught his eye. Dark figures emerged from recessed alcoves around the perimeter of the cavern, humanoid in general form, but clearly not human. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, with elongated limbs and features that seemed to shift when viewed directly, as if they existed partially in another dimension. The Guardians. They made no move to approach or hinder him, simply observing his progress with inscrutable attention. Their presence should have terrified him, but Daniel felt only a strange sense of recognition, as if he had always known they would be waiting. When he reached the base of the pyramid, he found no obvious entrance. Trusting his growing intuition, he removed the keystone and held it toward the structure. In response, a section of the wall reconfigured just as the cliff face had done, creating an entrance. The Guardians remained motionless as Daniel stepped through the opening and into the sanctum. Inside, the pyramid was a single vast chamber, its walls inscribed with flowing symbols that moved and rearranged themselves continuously, a living language evolving in real time. At the center stood a dais with a triangular depression that matched the shape of the keystone. The whisper presence returned, stronger now. Place the keystone upon the altar, heir of the forbidden line. Daniel approached the dais, keystone in hand. As he prepared to place it in the depression, a doubt struck him. What happens when I do this? What am I activating? Understanding, the presence replied. The keystone is not a weapon. It is a key to knowledge long withheld. Still hesitant, Daniel asked, "Why me? Why now? The time of veiling is ending. The children must know their heritage before the convergence." The cryptic answer raised more questions than it answered, but Daniel sensed he would learn nothing more until he completed the ritual. With a deep breath, he placed the keystone into the triangular depression. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The keystone merged seamlessly with the dais, and the entire chamber blazed with light. The symbols on the walls flowed more rapidly, converging toward the ceiling, where they coalesced into a swirling vortex of luminescence. From this vortex, a beam of coherent energy struck Daniel directly in the forehead. There was no pain. Instead, information flooded his consciousness in a torrent too vast to comprehend. Images, concepts, and revelations cascaded through his mind. The predecessors, not extinct but transcended, having evolved beyond physical form. Their millennia-long project to cultivate humanity, subtly guiding their development across generations. The forbidden lines, human bloodlines specifically enhanced to serve as bridges between physical and transcended existence. The coming convergence, a cosmic event where the barriers between dimensions would thin, allowing the predecessors to return and elevate worthy humans to their level of existence. And finally, the truth about the UCA's knowledge of these plans, how they had discovered fragments of the predecessor legacy and twisted it toward weaponization and control, fearing the loss of power that the convergence would bring. When the information stream finally ceased, Daniel fell to his knees, gasping. His mind struggled to integrate what he had received, knowledge too profound for any single human to fully process. Yet even as he knelt there, he became aware of changes within himself. His perception had expanded. He could sense the guardians outside the pyramid, could feel the living energy flowing through the sanctum systems, could even detect distant vibrations that must be Administrator Chen's survey team beginning their work near his family's farm. The keystone pulsed once more, then rose from the dais, floating before him. As Daniel watched, it transformed, unfolding like a flower blooming in accelerated time, revealing an inner core of pulsating energy. The seed is awakened, the presence announced. The protocol advances to its next phase. What am I supposed to do with this? Daniel asked, gesturing to the transformed keystone. Protect it. Nurture it. When the time comes, plant it where the lines converge. Before Daniel could ask for clarification, a new sensation interrupted, a distant alarm ringing in his expanded awareness. He understood immediately. They found my parents. They're coming here. Yes, the presence confirmed. The opposers have deployed their seekers. They will arrive within hours. I need to warn my parents, Daniel said, rising to his feet. I need to help them. It is too late. The choice has been made. You must proceed. Anger flared within him. I won't abandon my family. Then do not, the presence replied, with what almost seemed like compassion. But understand that your path now affects all humanity. The seed must be protected until the convergence. The transformed keystone, the seed, floated toward him, and instinctively, Daniel cupped his hands to receive it. As it settled into his palms, it pulsed once more, then seemed to dissolve, flowing like liquid light into his skin, disappearing completely. He gasped as warmth spread through his body. The seed hadn't vanished, it had merged with him. You are now the vessel, the presence explained. The seed will grow within you, changing you, preparing you for what must come. And what exactly must come? Daniel demanded, still reeling from the sensation of the alien artifact becoming part of him. Humanity's next evolution, the fulfillment of the predecessor design. But first, you must evade those who would prevent it. The pyramid walls suddenly became transparent, allowing Daniel to see through to the cavern beyond. The guardians had vanished, and in their place, a new exit had opened in the far wall, a tunnel leading upward. That path will take you to the settlement you seek, the presence informed him. The one called Alara Voss will recognize what you have become. She will help you gather the other heirs. Other heirs? There are more like me. Many, scattered and hidden. The forbidden lines were numerous, and they have multiplied across generations. Daniel took a deep breath, trying to steady himself as the implications crashed over him. He was no longer just running from the UCA. He had become part of something far larger, a cosmic plan set in motion millennia ago. Go now, the presence urged. The opposers approach. With a final glance at the dais where his life had irrevocably changed, Daniel headed for the exit tunnel. As he reached the threshold, he paused. Will I hear you again? I am part of you now, heir of the forbidden line. The seed carries my essence. I will guide you as you grow into your purpose. With that cryptic assurance, Daniel entered the tunnel, leaving the sanctum behind. The path climbed steadily upward, eventually emerging from the mountainside at a point several kilometers from where he had entered. From this vantage, he could see the distant settlement of New Prospect nestled in the valley below. As he began the descent toward the outpost, Daniel felt the weight of his new reality settling upon him. He was no longer Daniel Foster, simple farmer from New Eden. He was an heir of the forbidden line, carrying within him an alien seed of transformation that would apparently reshape humanity's future. And somewhere behind him, the forces of the UCA were closing in, determined to control the power he now possessed. Night was falling as Daniel approached the outskirts of New Prospect. Lights glimmered in the valley, promising shelter and perhaps allies. But as he took his first steps toward the settlement, a sensation like static electricity raced across his skin. He froze, suddenly aware of a new presence in his expanded consciousness. Not the ancient whisper of the sanctum, but something colder, more mechanical. They were scanning the area. The UCA had arrived ahead of him. Daniel crouched behind a ridge overlooking New Prospect, his enhanced senses detecting UCA agents methodically searching the settlement below. They were scanning for his energy signature. Focus your awareness on the seed. The presence within him instructed. Visualize containing its energy within your core. Daniel concentrated, imagining the swirling energy compressing into a dense point at his center. When he opened his eyes, he could see his own bioelectric field had changed, the predecessor energy now massed beneath his natural human emanations. He carefully descended toward New Prospect, avoiding checkpoints by circling to a maintenance access near a water facility. Inside the settlement, he navigated toward the industrial district, searching for Ilera Voss's repair shop. The shop's faded holographic sign read, Voss Mechanical, Repairs and Modifications. As he approached, Daniel sensed an unusual energy field surrounding the building, predecessor technology hybridized with human engineering. Inside, he met Ilera Voss, an older woman with silver-streaked black hair and penetrating eyes. When he mentioned his mother Sarah had sent him, Ilera became alert. Using a device embedded with predecessor technology, she discovered he was carrying a seed. By the stars, she whispered in astonishment. Ilera secured the shop and led Daniel through a phase-shifted wall into a hidden chamber filled with blended human and predecessor technology. Several people worked at various stations, all stopping to stare as he entered. Everyone, this is apparently Thomas Shepard's grandson, Ilera announced. And he's carrying a seed. Daniel learned they were the Reclamation, a network of scientists and archaeologists who believed the UCA's policy on predecessor technology was fundamentally flawed. His grandfather had been one of their founders, researching the forbidden lines, humans genetically modified by the predecessors. The Shepard line, your line, was considered the most dangerous, explained Marcus, a man with a cybernetic eye. The most compatible with deep predecessor integration. Daniel mentioned the convergence, startling them. He recounted his experience at the sanctum, the transformation of the keystone, and the seed merging with his body. The convergence is imminent, Ilera said gravely. The predecessors don't initiate seed activation unless the cosmic alignment is approaching. Suddenly, security alarms blared as UCA forces converged on the building. With no time for evacuation, Ilera directed Daniel to escape through an old mining tunnel while they delayed the UCA. The UCA will extract the seed, a process that will almost certainly kill you, Ilera warned. Worse, they'll use its power to prevent the convergence, keeping humanity trapped in its current evolutionary state. Ren, an engineer, led Daniel to the tunnel entrance. Your arrival, with a fully activated seed, is what we've been waiting for. It validates everything we've fought for. As Daniel fled through the tunnel, an explosion rocked the corridor. The UCA was bombarding the Reclamation hideout. People were dying because of him, because of what he carried. Their sacrifice serves the greater purpose, the seed presence reminded him. The convergence offers transcendence not just for the heirs, but potentially for all humanity. After traveling for hours through the mountain transit system, Daniel reached an isolated station. Using a communications unit Ren had given him, he contacted Frequency Delta 9 and asked for Amara. A shuttle soon arrived, and Daniel met Amara, a tall woman with closely cropped hair. She informed him that 4 Reclamation members had been killed and 7 captured, including Ilera and Marcus. Aboard the shuttle, Daniel met Victor Lazarus, an elderly man who had worked with his grandfather before the Restriction Acts. Victor explained that the seed was accelerating Daniel's evolution, activating the predecessor genetic modifications across his cellular structure. The Shepard line was engineered for integration and communication with predecessor systems, Imara explained. Your potential may far exceed our understanding. They also revealed that Daniel's parents had been captured and taken to the Mars detention complex. The Reclamation had been gathering individuals from the forbidden lines, 43 confirmed heirs from 5 bloodlines, but none had abilities as strong as Daniel's. The shuttle arrived at Meridian Station, a complex built within a mountain. Over several days, Daniel underwent testing that revealed his cellular structure was changing rapidly, becoming more efficient and resilient. His ability to interface with predecessor technology had evolved beyond anything previously recorded. When the UCA began deploying battlecruisers and instituting no-fly zones around Reclamation sympathetic worlds, Victor initiated Protocol Sunburst, recalling all heirs to Meridian Station. Daniel met individuals from various bloodlines. Lena Devereaux, who could manipulate energy fields, Hiroshi Koga with extraordinary spatial awareness, and Aisha Almazy, who demonstrated accelerated healing abilities. His presence seemed to amplify their abilities, a precursor to what Victor called convergence resonance. 2 weeks later, Victor revealed that the UCA had begun systematically targeting known heir bloodlines and had placed Administrator Chun in charge of Project Nullification to develop countermeasures against the approaching convergence. They're going to try to block the dimensional thinning, Imara explained. If they deploy enough energy dampeners at key locations, they could disrupt the conditions necessary for the convergence. Worse, the Mars detention complex where Daniel's parents were held had been designated as the primary testing facility for anti-air protocols, using detainees as test subjects. Victor proposed a bold plan: free the detainees and simultaneously broadcast the truth about the convergence to every colony world. Daniel would lead a small team in a direct insertion to the Mars facility, while other heirs would coordinate a massive information release across all colonial networks. On the eve of the mission, Daniel stood alone in the observation dome, gazing at the stars. The seed within him pulsed with anticipation. "You doubt," it observed. "I'm afraid," Daniel admitted. "Not for myself, but for the others. If we fail, the UCA will eliminate every heir they can find." Fear is natural, the presence acknowledged. But inaction guarantees the UCA will continue their purge and prevent the convergence. Imara joined him, informing him of the final briefing. "Your grandfather predicted this moment, when humanity would have to decide whether to embrace its potential or remain limited by fear. He believed we should have the choice," she added. "That's what the UCA is trying to prevent, not just the evolution itself, but our right to choose it." The day of the mission arrived. The team infiltrated Mars space using a cargo shuttle with modified signatures that disguised their approach. Lena's energy manipulation abilities disrupted perimeter sensors, while Hiroshi's spatial calculations guided them through blind spots in the defense grid. Landing in a maintenance bay, they encountered the first guards. Daniel discovered he could now perceive the electrical impulses of human nervous systems, seeing the guards' movements before they happened. The team neutralized them without casualties. Accessing the central computer, Daniel interfaced directly with the system. Information flowed through him like water, and he located his parents in the high-security wing along with 23 other detainees. Security protocols initiating, the system announced. They had been detected. "We have 10 minutes before reinforcements arrive," Hiroshi calculated. Daniel led the team through the complex, his connection to the seed growing stronger with each passing moment. When they reached the detention level, they found Administrator Chun waiting with a squad of elite guards. "The heir returns," she said, unsurprised. "I knew you'd come for your parents." "This ends now, Chun," Daniel replied. "The truth about the convergence is being broadcast across the colonies as we speak." "Truth?" Chun laughed bitterly. "You think transcendence is a gift? The predecessors aren't benevolent guides. They're parasites seeking new hosts. Your grandfather discovered this too late." Daniel hesitated, sensing genuine belief in her words. "Show him." Chen ordered a technician, who activated a screen displaying research data. These are brain scans of individuals after prolonged exposure to active predecessor artifacts. The changes aren't evolution, they're subversion of human neural architecture. "She's manipulating you," the seed presence warned. "The UCA fears what it cannot control." Daniel studied the data, then reached out with his enhanced perception, searching beyond the surface presentation. He detected the subtle alterations, data modified to support Chen's narrative. "You've falsified these results," he stated with certainty. Chen's expression hardened. "Take them," she ordered her guards. What followed was chaos. Lena created energy shields as guards opened fire. Aisha moved with incredible speed, disarming opponents with precise strikes. Hiroshi predicted attack patterns, guiding Daniel through the melee. And Daniel, Daniel felt the seed's energy surge through him. With a thought, he disabled the complex's power systems. With a gesture, he unlocked every cell door. The freed detainees joined the fray, many showing abilities that had been suppressed during captivity. Together, they overwhelmed the guards. Chun fled toward a secure command center, but Daniel pursued her. When he cornered her, she drew a weapon unlike any he'd seen, a predecessor artifact modified by UCA scientists. "This will extract the seed," she threatened, "killing you in the process." "There's another way," Daniel said, lowering his hands. "Let me show you the truth." Before she could react, he extended his awareness toward her, establishing a direct mental link, a capability he hadn't known he possessed until that moment. Through this connection, he shared what the seed had shown him, not subjugation but symbiosis, not erasure but enhancement. Chun staggered, the modified artifact falling from her hands. "This can't be real," she whispered. "But it is," Daniel affirmed. "The convergence isn't an ending, it's a beginning, a choice." Meanwhile, across the solar system, the Reclamation's information campaign was succeeding. Billions witnessed testimonials from heirs, saw evidence of the UCA's deception, and learned about the approaching convergence. Daniel found his parents in the detention block, weak but alive. Their reunion was brief but emotional. "We knew you'd find your way," his mother said proudly. "The sanctum showed me," Daniel replied, "just like grandfather predicted." As they evacuated the facility, reports came in from across the colonies. Public opinion was shifting rapidly as people absorbed the revelations. Some feared the implications, but many were intrigued by the possibility of something greater than their current existence. The UCA leadership, faced with widespread knowledge they could no longer suppress, issued a statement calling for calm and promising investigations into the allegations. 3 months later, as the winter solstice approached, Daniel stood atop a mountain on New Eden, not far from his family's farm. Around him gathered hundreds of heirs and thousands of humans who had chosen to witness the convergence. The seed within him had continued to transform his body and mind. He was still human in form, but his consciousness had expanded beyond ordinary perception. The other heirs had undergone similar changes, each according to their unique genetic heritage. As the precise astronomical alignment occurred, the sky above shimmered with colors no human language could describe. The dimensional thinning had begun. Daniel raised his hands, and the other heirs joined him in creating a resonance field that amplified the effect. A gateway formed in the air above them, not a physical portal, but a permeable boundary between states of existence. From beyond this boundary came presences that Daniel recognized as the transcended predecessors. They did not speak in words, but in concepts that bloomed directly in the minds of all present. "We offer choice, not command. Evolution, not replacement. Join us if you wish, remain if you prefer. Both paths are valid." Some stepped forward, heirs and humans alike, entering the gateway and transforming into beings of light and thought. Others chose to remain, bearing witness but preserving their physical existence. Daniel's parents approached him at the threshold. "Is this goodbye?" his father asked. Daniel smiled. "No, it's a new beginning. The barriers will remain thinned after today. Those who transcend can still communicate with those who stay. Humanity isn't being divided, but expanded." His mother touched his face gently. "And you? Have you decided?" Daniel looked back at the gathered crowd, at the world that had been his only home. Then he gazed into the gateway where new forms of existence awaited. "I think I'm meant to be a bridge," he said finally. "Not fully transcended, not fully physical. Someone who can help others understand the choice, whatever they decide." As the solstice reached its peak, Daniel stepped partially into the gateway, his being resonating between states. He became what his grandfather had theorized, a living connection between humanity's present and its potential future. The farm boy from New Eden, heir of the forbidden line, had found his true purpose. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.